No deal for doctors yet. Just what did the president put on the table? D-Day in the Senate. House to vote tomorrow on controversial laws. Battle Royale. Makto's funeral stopped over wealth sharing.
We, the Board of Directors, are pleased to announce the appointment of Dr. Ken Tarus.
And Ken Tarus it is. Kenya Power gets a new chief executive. Good evening. Welcome to the Bulletin tonight. I'm Yvonne Okwara Matole and our sign language interpreter is Meresha Owiti. We begin in Mombasa, where the government has in the last hour offered doctors what it calls a new deal to end the strike. The deal that the government says will cost the taxpayer some 4 billion shillings each year was presented at a day-long meeting between the doctors and President Uhuru Kenyatta. We can now take a look at that deal and how it compares with what the doctors initially wanted. So let's take a look at this here on my super wall. The doctors had made a number of demands that they have been clamoring for the last 31 days. It wasn't just about the money, it goes beyond that. First off was a review of the job group from M to L. And what the doctors wanted was that they would, let's take it a little slower and then we can move on. So they wanted to start hiring from the higher job group of M instead of L for the post of medical officer intern. And those who were in job group L would automatically be promoted. This is what the government has offered tonight. They have offered to raise the entry-level grade into the public service from M to L. So the government has essentially granted this demand, saying it is higher than the normal entry for other public servants and therefore recognizes the doctor's professional training. Now, on the next issue that the doctors had been clamoring for is their postgraduate studies. They wanted training to be catered for by the Ministry of Health, and they wanted 400 to be trained in various different specialties. There has been no mention of this from the government tonight. On the other issue of promotions, it had been said by the doctors that some had remained in the same job group for close to 5 to 10 years, and they wanted promotions effected. Again, we haven't heard much from the government on this deal tonight, on this particular issue. But here's the big one, the sticky one that is going to cost quite a bit of money. They wanted an increase in the basic pay and allowances up to 300%, according to a CBA that had been signed way back in the year 2013. That wanted, it would have cost you, the taxpayer, about 2 billion shillings without the arrears, but round about 8 billion shillings if you consider the arrears going back to 2013. The issue of that arrears is a bit sticky because the CBA comes into effect once it is registered at the court. And this was one of the points of contention with the doctors. It has been signed but yet to be registered in a court of law. What has the government offered with this tonight? Well, the president's deal is as follows. It's the enhanced emergency call allowance. They have increased from 66,000 from 30,000 for those in job group L. That is a 100% increase. There has also been an increase in that enhanced emergency call allowance for job groups M to P. That's 30,000 to 72,000. And from job groups Q and above, from 30,000 to 80,000. In addition, there's also a new doctor's risk allowance that has been given. All of this that the government has given to the doctors today will cost you, the taxpayer, 4 billion shillings to be spread out amongst the 5,000 doctors. The basic pay increases by about 56,000 more shillings. And this is the deal that has been offered by the government tonight. Will the doctors agree to these offers that have been put on the table? Let's take a look at the final demand that was made by the doctors over the last month or so. They wanted more medical practitioners hired. How many? They wanted 1,200 doctors hired per year, and this is across the different fields. That's dental practitioners, pharmacists, and doctors. So this is the deal, this is the demands, and we've also told you about the deal that has been made by the government that would cost you 4 billion shillings if the doctors agree to the offer that has been placed on the table. Some say this is pretty much the same offer that had been made twice before. So let's talk a little bit more about this with Dr. Lukoye Atwoli, who's the Dean School of Medicine. All right, so I think we'll do it the other way around. Let's speak to Francis Ontomwa from Mombasa. Francis, we know you've been on this beat all day long. Tell us about the reaction from the doctors.
Well, Yvonne, it's a sad day, and indeed, even when it involved the head of state, still the white smoke failed to billow from State House Mombasa. And of course, the doctors are still holding to that particular stand that there is no deal yet signed, and they are saying that they are going now to actually subject what transpired today to the National Advisory Council so that they are able to give a proper stand come Friday. At this juncture, the state has also given its statement, and the doctors still holding to the fact that actually the state is only subjecting them to the old script that they had actually rejected the other time. This what ultimately now of course translates is the fact that of course suffering continues at all public health facilities, and it's now a month long, and it actually looks like not a scintilla of hope is on the road that this is going to be resolved. Kenyans are angered by this state of affairs. They are saying that today was actually their only day that they had actually pinned their hope on the president that he could actually break this particular impasse, but looks like it is still a long way to go, Yvonne.
All right, so tell us who exactly was at the meeting. I know we've talked about this in the course of the day, but for our viewers who are joining us now, who was in the meeting? Why did this take all day? It was initially set to begin much earlier in the morning, but didn't get started until around midday. So tell us about perhaps what you're hearing was the state of the deliberations in there, and who exactly was present at this meeting today.
Well, no, actually, any particular explanation has been given as regards why the meeting was delayed from 10 a.m. to about noon. There was that huge delay. Doctors, that is the KMPDU officials, were actually stranded within the town waiting for that call from a State House. But yes, the meeting began at around noon, and it has extended all through up to around 7 p.m. today. And it had actually a break at some point. They took tea at some point and then came back to the meeting, but still not a scintilla of hope on actually reaching a truce on this particular matter. Well, the representation had, of course, the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union. 7 members from that particular union were represented. Then we had also a representation from the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Also, the Health Ministry was represented ably there by Cleopa Mailu, the Health CS. And also Treasury was present in that particular meeting. And of course, the Public Service Commission was also represented with Professor Kobia. Therefore, it was actually a top machine, or rather a joint effort really to try and break this impasse, but still they actually hit a dead end because still no deal has been signed this evening, Yvonne.
Okay, and it is important to note that the Council of Governors were not present at that meeting. Thank you very much, Francis Ontomwa, joining us live from Mombasa, which was the venue of the talks that took place today. And a deal has been put on the table, or rather an offer has been put on the table. No deal yet tonight. So let's talk about that offer a little bit more. Dr. Lukoye Atwoli, who's the Dean of School of Medicine at Moi University, joining me now live from Eldoret. Dr. Lukoye Atwoli, help us understand, this is the same deal that has been offered to the doctors twice before?
So this is the same sort of deal that was allegedly offered to the doctors earlier. Although it must be very clear that in the view of the union, from what I understand, this is the first time a deal is being offered on the table for discussion. In the past, we have had deals being offered in the media. And as you know, negotiations cannot take place in the media. We have been adamant as the Kenya Medical Association and as the doctors' fraternity that all these discussions need to take place around a table where people can have give and take and agree. And this is, in my view, the first time there have been serious engagements of all the parties looking at a document that the government is offering. Unfortunately, it is exactly the same thing that was allegedly or purportedly offered earlier during these discussions when the strike began.
All right.
So in my view, it doesn't look like it is moving forward. It looks like it is still, marking time at the same place and refusing to discuss anything to do with the CBA that the doctors want to be discussed.
All right, we'll get to the money issues in just a moment. But then there was also the issue about hiring more doctors and more medical practitioners, shall I say. But the government wasn't specific on this, just reaffirming, and I quote, its commitment to ensuring equity in the nationwide distribution of doctors and continuous training. So there are some aspects of this that are a bit more specific than others. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, it looks to me like the proposal from the government was not very structured, it was not specific enough, and it did not address any of the demands to the level that one could call an agreement. Say, if the doctors were to sign this agreement, there's absolutely no commitment on training, there's absolutely no commitment on distribution of human resources for health, there's absolutely no commitment on equipment of facilities, there's nothing. The only thing that we are seeing specificity on is the money. And in my view, that was not even the most important component of the document that the doctors wanted to discuss.
And speaking of the money, why would this be any different? A CBA was signed in the year 2013, detailing, in quite some serious aspects, the issue of pay. And now we're haggling over a signed document at that time. There's now a deal on the table. Is there any indication that this offer that has been put in place by the president today would be any different from the CBA that was signed 3 years ago?
It is markedly different, but I mean, by way of preamble, I would like to point out that I do not think this is an offer that is being put forward by the president. This is an offer that was offered by the Ministry of Health at the beginning, and they have just rehashed it. They bring different people to start discussing it so that it looks like it's a fresh deal, but it isn't. It is my hope that the president will study this document that the doctors are presenting as a CBA in detail, read it together with the judgment of the industrial court, and find a path in which the doctors can come out with a CBA that is signed, and the government can be able to have a mechanism to implement this document for the betterness of the health sector of this country. The longer we wait, the more people die, the more people suffer, and yet it is a responsibility of the government to ensure that all Kenyans have access to high-quality healthcare services. So this is not yet a document that is worth discussing. The offer that has been given is too vague. It is contradictory. For instance, it talks about starting doctors at job group M instead of job group L, and then it goes ahead and offers enhancements to allowances at job group L, which will not be existing within the medical establishment. So it means it is not well thought out. The government needs to go back, think really more seriously about this, and make a serious offer that resolves the contentious issues in the CBA that was signed in 2013. Anything short of that will look cynical, it will look unserious on the part of the government.
All right, Dr. Atwoli, it is notable that the Council of Governors had no representation at this meeting. What's your take on that?
Yeah.
And does this render this offer that has been put on the table useless in a sense? Do you think the governors will then come in and say, oh, it's fine, this deal was discussed in our absence, but, it's fine, we will implement it because health is now a devolved issue?
So I think one of the misconceptions that we have is that health is 100% devolved. One of the things we must always accept and agree is that health is a shared function between the national and the county governments. And therefore, they must do this together. However, at this point, they're discussing a human resource and remuneration issue and so on, something that the national government is able to provide policy direction on. And the advantage to the governors is that even if the national government negotiates this and reaches agreement with the doctors, the advantage is that it is the Treasury that must provide the funding. And therefore, wherever the doctors are, whether they are in the county or at the national level, the national government, the Treasury, must provide the funding to pay for an agreement that they sign. So the Council of Governors, it is important to involve them in the discussions. However, if they are not involved, they are in a position where they can say, well, it's a good agreement, we agree with it, give us the money to implement it. And it will be up to Treasury and the national government to find the money and distribute it to any place where the doctors are so that they are paid according to that agreement.
So just a quick one as we conclude. Do you think the doctors will take this deal or not on Friday?
I mean, it is clear to me that they have not taken the deal, because if they were going to take the deal, an agreement would have been signed today. We wouldn't be talking about a continuing impasse. And I would have been happy to see an agreement being signed today. And an agreement would only have been signed today if a serious offer that addresses the issues in the CBA had been put on the table. This has not been done. Therefore, there is no prospect that this same deal that has been offered today will be the same deal that will be accepted on Friday, unless there are changes, unless there are specificities that are written into it that address specific concerns that have been raised over the past 5 years by the medical fraternity. If a document that addresses those issues to specific detail is presented and signed, then yes, a deal will be signed. But as things stand today, nothing has changed. It's just an offer that we have seen in the media, and we think it is the same offer that was being presented in the past, and therefore the president needs to exert himself a little more, to push his technocrats a little more, to come out with a deal that will be more acceptable to the people in the health fraternity.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Okwara Matole, joining me live from Eldoret. He's the Dean of School of Medicine at the Moi University. Now, no deal yet, so we wait to see what happens on Friday. Now, members of the Senate are tomorrow expected to take a vote on the controversial amendments on the electoral laws during an acrimonious session in the National Assembly. Senators will first debate a report by the Legal Affairs and Human Rights Committee that has been collecting views from Kenyans on whether the laws should be amended or not before taking that crucial vote. And as Chris Thairu reports, mediation process will be inevitable given that the committee has proposed some amendments.
Overruled. Focus now shift to senators as they resume debate on the hotly contested amendments to the electoral laws that ended in acrimony in the National Assembly. Members of the Amos Wako-led committee that has been receiving submissions from the public were for the better part of the day rushing up and down to compile the report that will form the basis of the debate in the Senate. The committee received submissions from different stakeholders regarding the controversial amendments that provides for manual identification and transmission of results in the event technology fails.
We're at war with Al-Shabaab, and they could find ways of jamming and blocking our whole electronic systems, hacking into our systems. As a country, we cannot be held hostage. We need to have a backup and an alternative that allows us to be able to continue with the elections.
So you should be telling us, other than elections, we have M-Pesa that is running an economy of trillions of shillings. Why hasn't Al-Shabaab interfered with the M-Pesa system?
The IBC emphasized the importance of resolving the issues raised through a bipartisan approach. Now, the bill is before the Senate, and the IBC calls for the same bipartisan spirit.
During the submissions, governors, media owners and business leaders differed with Attorney General Professor Githu Muigai on whether the country should have a fallback plan in voter identification and transmission of results in case the electronic transmission fails.
Identification on arrival is where we have a problem. And then the question is transmission. Must you carry the Form 16A and change it 3 times before it arrives at KICC? Physically. It can be transmitted through the satellite gadgets.
How do we count the vote? We have no machine for counting the vote. It's a manual process. We empty the debe and we count. If we emphasize the electronic, we will be ignoring the reality of what happens on the day we vote.
The manual system has been abused, so we have cured the manual system. The mere act of voting being manual means that the entire process is both manual and electronic.
However, sources within the Legal Affairs Committee chaired by Busia Senator Amos Wako intimated to KTN News that as it stands, a mediation will be inevitable. According to sources, the senators have resolved to amend some of the clauses that were amended by the National Assembly during the acrimonious session that saw the opposition legislators storm out of the chambers. If senators agree to amend the electoral laws contrary to the National Assembly, then both houses will be forced to go for a mediation and seek a middle ground on the issue. But if they pass a vote that the laws should remain as they were changed by the National Assembly, then the opposition will be heading back to the streets in protest. Chris Dairu, KTN News.
Elsewhere, the National Assembly is set to meet next week to vet the proposed new commissioners at the IEBC. The special sitting will consider recommendations of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee on the new team. Last week, the President nominated 7 persons to the commission, including Advocate Wafula Chebukati, who is the proposed chair. Chebukati has come under sharp scrutiny since then, with some critics accusing him of impropriety during a case he handled for the county government of Nairobi. There are also questions about regional balance, since he hails from the same region with the IEBC CEO Ezra Chiloba. Meanwhile, the National Assembly's Legal Affairs Committee will tomorrow begin vetting the proposed chair of the EACC, Eliud Wabukala. Wabukala is a former Archbishop of the Anglican Church. All right, now commuters had a rough time securing public transport, leaving many students returning to school stranded for hours. Some of the commuters faced a hectic time booking vehicles as transport companies took advantage of the situation to make a kill. And as Caroline B reports, stationery and school uniform outlets recorded booming business.
The back-to-school period has become a season of its own, with parents engaging in last-minute rush to take their children to school. The number of people on the streets and in bus termini was overwhelming, as at Afya Center in Nairobi. Many students who arrived as early as 6 a.m. in the morning were left stranded.
Tulifika hapa actually before 6. Na watu wako wengi, so kuna lack of cars.
Nilikuwa naharakisha nikikimbia, hata huko kazini sijaomba ruhusa. Sasa nimekuja hapa, tumekaa tunashindwa management iko aje hiyo ya Transline.
Tumeambiwa tungoje the next bus yenye inakuja ndio tutapanda, lakini tumekawia sana.
In Nakuru County, schools were a beehive of activity as parents sought admissions for their children to early childhood centers. Some of the children could not contemplate being left alone in school.
The challenge we are having with the class 7, we had 150 girls, so we don't have any chance in class 8. But class 7, the ones who are coming from other schools to join us are just overwhelming.
According to me, at least if you have shoes and you have the things that you really need, you're going to study well.
And in Kisumu County, students of Chulaimbo Secondary School who are returning to school were shocked to find their mattresses and boxes destroyed by fire last night. But school authorities said measures had been put to cater for the affected students.
We need our feeding program back.
And in Thika, it was drama as angry parents of Moi Primary School stormed the school, demanding an explanation over exorbitant fees charged on new parents.
Whoever was doing it, the caterer you are talking of, has done it for a long time. And her contract ended in 2013. Her contract ended in 2013. I have the records.
According to a directive from the Ministry of Education, no school is allowed to levy fees beyond the set limit to ensure that the cost of education remains affordable. Caroline B, KTN News.
You're watching KTN Prime this Wednesday, the 4th of January 2017. No deal in the doctors' crisis yet. We want to take a short break right now. We will be right back. We have more news at the other side of the break. Welcome back. Let's talk business news now. All eyes in the energy sector now turn to the Kenya Electricity Generating Company to learn the fate of the erstwhile CEO there. But it would be important to tell you today that Ben Chumo exited at the helm of Kenya Power and Lighting Company, and he handed over to Dr. Ken Tarus, who has been in the company for a number of years in charge of finance. He is a PhD holder as well as a master's and a BCom's degree from the University of Nairobi.
Expiring on the 6th of January 2017.
My contract ends the day after tomorrow. And like we always say, generals don't retire, they fade away. And so I began to fade away immediately today.
Dr. Ben Tarus, formerly the company's general manager in charge of finance and a member of the executive management team for a period of 2 years, has been appointed in acting capacity.
I wish to urge that we continue with the spirit that we've had with the outgoing MD so that we take this institution to the next level.
According to the Kenya Power Board of Directors Chair and former Speaker Kenneth Marende, the process of recruiting a new substantive CEO has already started, with the consultants working to have a candidate in place soon.
We expect that in the course of this year, before too long, this position will have been filled permanently because the process has already commenced.
Dr. Chumo joined Kenya Power in 1986 as a human resource officer, rising to chief manager in charge of HR in 2003 before taking over in the corner office a decade later. He was in July 2013 appointed acting CEO following the promotion of the then Kenya Power boss Joseph Njoroge to serve as Energy PS. Dr. Chumo received his doctorate degree in HR management from Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology in the year 2013. His tenure at Kenya Power has seen electricity connections double to 4.87 million households and industries as at June 2016, from 2.3 million customers in June 2013 when he took office. And so the exit of Dr. Ben Chumo and the entry of Dr. Ken Tarus at the helm of Kenya Power heralds new direction and comes at a time that Kenya is in the midst of a gripping drought, which will certainly push up the price of electricity over the next few months. Peter Akaba, KTN News at Stima Plaza in Nairobi.
More changes within the energy sector. KenGen CEO Engineer Albert Mugo has been reappointed for a further period of 1 year. The announcement of the reappointment breaks with tradition in that it was announced on Twitter. The pinned tweet on KenGen's Twitter page simply reads, and I quote, "The board of directors is pleased to announce reappointment of MD Engineer," his Twitter handle, A Mugo Mugo, for a further period of 1 year with effect from the 4th of January 2017, end quote. Mugo's contract was winding down and pundits were taking bets on whether he would get an extension to his contract. Under Mugo, KenGen has massively extended the development of geothermal and has taken energy generation from green sources to 83%. Now, Telkom Kenya has appointed James Kamau and Levi Nyakundi as Head of Supply Chain and Chief Marketing Officer, respectively. The appointments are part of a broader strengthening of the telco's operational and service excellence and is aligned to its transformation agenda. James Kamau has over 15 years multinational experience in the telecommunications, oil and gas in Africa, including emerging high-growth markets of Kenya and Nigeria. Prior to joining Telkom Kenya, he was the supply chain director at Helios Towers, Tanzania. Levi Nyakundi, on the other hand, has over 15 years' experience in the marketing industry, both in the telecommunications and FMCG sectors. Prior to joining Telkom Kenya, he was the marketing director at Airtel Kenya, Airtel Tanzania and Airtel Uganda for 6 years. Kenya Police men's hockey team is seeking to become Kenya's second hockey team to win the African Club Championship when they take to this year's edition of the competition. Police say the biggest threat in the competition will come from North African teams. Here's Robinson Okwara with that report.
After failing to take part in last year's African Club Championship in Zimbabwe, 2014 Kenya Hockey Men's Premier League champions Kenya Police feel they are well prepared for this year's championships. The servicemen will be seeking to use their home advantage to their benefit as they tackle teams from across the region.
We are going for the trophy, for the #1 trophy, because the tournament's it's on home turf. So I think we'll do our level best to claim the trophy back to Kenya.
As you know, we missed out on the next qualifier, so this is our ultimate. We have to work hard, beat all the odds, win the tournament so that we are back in the championship, African Club Championship content.
Police feel the experience in their ranks by players who ply their trade for the national team will go a long way in boosting them during the championship, despite finishing third in the league in 2016.
We have a couple of national team players in the team, so this is the team to win the tournament. Despite the fact that we are going there as underdogs, we've not been performing well in the league, but this is the team to take the tournament.
Isipokuwa tunataka kuchukua game, kila game vile inakuja. Hatusema ati game gani rahisi ama nyingine ni afadhali. Tunajua game zote ni ngumu na pia sisi tuko sawa pia.
With the defending champions Eastern Company from Egypt in to defend their title, Police side the North African sides and 2015 Kenya champions Butali as their biggest threat.
It's not the first time that we have played against them, so we know how they play. The coaches have trained us on how they play, on the mistake that we did in the past, and I think we are going to win the games. Yeah.
The only Kenyan team to have won the Men's African Club Championship is the now defunct Kenya Armed Forces Hockey Club in 1998. Robinson Okwara, KTN Sports.
All right, that's the end of our bulletin tonight. Thank you so much for watching tonight and indeed every night. And your feedback is always welcome. Remember, the conversation continues online. You can reach me at Yvonne Okwara or at KTN News. Our sign language interpreter tonight was Maresha Owiti. And I am Yvonne Okwara Matole. Good night and good luck.